everyone who's joined in from different parts of the world. I am Nisarg. I'm one of the co-founders and CEO at Affable. Welcome to the Affable's webinar series on D2C growth, D2C client acquisition, everything D2C. Today, we have with us Susana, who's the co-founder and CEO of Pluto Pillow. Pluto Pillow is the first of its kind and the only custom-built pillow company that was launched back in 2018, so only 3 years ago. It has enjoyed a triple-digit year-over-year growth. It has been featured on Shark Tank and most recently on the Today Show. Susana has been an amazing founder and has enjoyed such an amazing growth for the D2C business, especially with a very, very small and lean team, which is the most impressive thing that I found about the business, about Susana as well. So today we'd like to talk about how Susana and her team have been scaling Pluto Pillow, where personalization and custom-built orders, custom-built products are at the core of their offering. And with that, Susana, any initial words that you'd like to introduce yourself, share a bit about yourself?
Yeah, for sure. I'm so excited to chat today. Happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me, Nisarg, and the Affable team. So like Nisarg was saying, I am the co-founder and CEO of Pluto. We are the first and only custom sleep pillow that's crafted to your body stats, how you sleep and what you like through a proprietary process. Our mission is to elevate your comfort and sleep through developing different products and experiences. And how we started with that is by customizing pillows.
Thank you so much, Susana, for sharing that. So today, given the topic being scaling a D2C brand with personalization and customization at the core of it, we'd like to, and before we get into the actual meat of the conversation, why pillows? Like everyone, there's such a huge market, of course, in sleepwear, everything around that. What led you to build something in this space of pillows?
Yeah, I actually never thought I would be in this business, but I think like many founders, the idea did come from a personal experience and I acted on it. So I've always had this passion towards consumer products. How can I dramatically improve upon the things we touch and feel every day, both from a product and experience standpoint? And so I've always been a car enthusiast. And there was a time between my first company and Pluto where I had more time to take my cars to the track. I also started like go-karting a lot. And then I started getting really bad neck pain, like to the point where it was affecting my track times. So that was like a big no-no. And it got to a point about a month in where I started seeking help, like just at first family doctors and then physical therapists. And that was then when I discovered that my pillow could be the culprit because I've been sleeping on the same pillow for like 10 years. So that's kind of, naturally I got really excited about a possible solution. So offline, I started going to different stores like, Target, Bed Bath & Beyond, Costco, feeling pillows through thick plastic bags and like going like this in stores, buying them and finding out that they weren't quite the right fit at home. But then online, the alternative, buying way was, to look online, you go on Amazon, there's 80,000 pillows. There were all of these one size fits all options or even like adjustable ones that were cumbersome. And all of them were really hard to compare with one another. The pillow space and pillows were also such an afterthought at the time compared to things like the mattress. Right. You buy a mattress, you get 2 pillows free. But then after buying and returning 7 different pillows, I just knew that there had to be a better way. What if we can approach the product, this one that everyone needs, in a more scientific, data-driven model to the purchasing experience, right? Like, what if we can improve upon both the materials that have been traditionally used, as well as both the purchase and post-purchase experience? So we approached these questions, me and my co-founder, very curious to see if others felt the same and wanted to also see from a data standpoint if we can make a real impact to the pillow industry return rate, which is about 12.95% at the time.
Wow. Okay. And like, so when you initially built it out, and I'm assuming that you probably like assembled materials and first built some pillows before getting it to like a manufacturing scale. How did you go about validating if this is not a problem that only you are facing or no? No, is it actually a big market out there where people would be willing to not only try this, but even pay for it on an ongoing basis? How did you go
Yeah,
about validating it?
I think our way of validating, we were really naive. We just thought that like, let's see if we could put out like a very simple version of our site. I felt like I had these pain points and questions. And when I asked other people for recommendations on pillows, like people didn't really have one as well. So we just thought, let's like kind of carve out like like a very simple website and like our first version of the pillows and see if we're getting sales. And that
Yeah.
was like the really kind of bare bones way back in like when we started. Again, this was mid 2018. And so I think we did, you know, kind of along the way, learned a lot, made some mistakes, but we just, instead of doing like a landing page, we actually just put it out there in a very cheap way, which we'll talk about.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, like, you know, the initial few sales and initial few customers would have been super special. Do you remember any anecdotes of like how the first few customers came about and like how they found about Pluto Pillow?
So in the beginning, you know, we were working on this site for quite a while. Didn't tell like family and friends about it too much. And I remember like how proud I was about it, like how cool the site was, how great the questionnaire flow was. Put it up and it was like crickets for like 2 weeks, right? Like it was a slow burn. It wasn't like we launched and it was like rainbows and everything.
Right.
But I do remember like our first sale came in and I thought it was just like me, like my phone, you know, it has that Shopify ring. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
like it could be like a ringtone, but it was someone, you know, that we didn't know who lives in Texas.
Wow.
His name is Aldrin. We still keep in touch to this day. We actually just talked last week, and that's how close we are to a lot of our customers. He's purchased not only our Pluto pillows a couple of times, but also our new products. And he's, you know, one of the people that we test out new products and materials with.
That's such an amazing special partnership coming out from the first few customers. How did you scale that to the first like 10,000 pillows? What was that? You know, and you know, you said you and your co-founder. Was it like two people in a garage, you know, making these pillows? Because how do you make 10,000 or 5,000 odd custom built pillows to start with? What was that process like?
Yeah, let's kind of just rewind and also talk about like how we got to the first, let's say like
Yeah.
10,000 customers. And it was a slow burn. You know, I'm going to be honest and say that like we made a lot of mistakes in terms of launching where we were just, you know, again, like really naive. But the first thing we did is we didn't have a lot of money for like, let's say Facebook ads or Instagram ads. So what we did was we relied really heavily on press, and even to this day. And so when, you know, when we weren't getting a lot of sales or when we weren't getting sales in the beginning, I just started, you know, that kind of putting a sheet together of every reporter or writer who ever talked about like a direct to consumer brand or a sleep brand or a custom brand, like any customization. And I would refine this like cold email pitch to like the T. And I could share more about this with any audience members later on. And so that was how we got some of our initial press. And I remember our first
Wow.
one was like Business Insider, actually, and then Fast Company, and then like Forbes and Entrepreneur afterwards before we hit like the Cosmopolitans, Real Simple. Like those are really great wins. And that happened within the first like 3 to 4 months because of just me constantly stalking and pitching to these writers about our process. And that was how we got our initial customers, by the way. It wasn't through like ads, it was through press. And we had pillows are so modular and fast so that we could scale.
So to summarize, initial customers, a lot of cold outreach to folks in the PR space, very targeted outreach, and that's how you got the first initial a few customers. That must have been like a super thrilling experience in the initial first few days of building the business. How did you come up with the name Pluto Pillow, right? Like, did you already know that this is what you're going to name the business, or is there like a story around how you came about
We had a sheet full of names. So
it?
I would just think of names, like keeping them on my keep notes or anything. But every kind of name that we really liked, the URL was obviously taken, or there was like some trademark issues around it. And I remember distinctly, there was a day, a night when I was falling asleep, and it just kind of came to me like Pluto Pillow. And when you think about it, two things is that there are only four kind of rock planets, which is, Mercury, Mars, Venus, and Earth. But Pluto is also one of them, even though it's not a planet anymore. It's a mixture of like 70% rock, 30% around that is like water, ice, and kind of gas. And when you think about our pillow specifically, there's a core. It varies depending on your preferences, body stats, and sleep positions. It varies in terms of firmness level, height, and everything. But there's a solid core always, and that's then enclosed within an outer plush cover that also varies greatly. But kind of when you think about it, it makes sense because of that makeup of that kind of
Right.
dwarf planet. And again, the URL was available. It flowed right out, Pluto Pillow. That was it. Yeah.
And you've obviously then stuck with it. The entire branding is around Pluto Pillow. The designs are amazing, by the way. The moment someone goes to the
Thank you.
website, the entire flow is amazing. Could you talk us through? So you have your first 10,000 odd customers, which is through personalized outreach, and you want to now scale it. You validated the problem, and this is probably around the 2018, 2019 timeframe where you're thinking about Shark Tank. What's going on in your mind? What is the team's thoughts around Shark Tank? I read one of the blogs where you've written about not going in the first time and then reevaluating and going into the next season. Like, how did you approach Shark Tank?
Yeah. I think it was February 2019. So a couple months after we launched, we got a note from the casting producer of the show who read an article actually on our company. So again, press. However, at that time, we weren't sure for a few reasons. My co-founder and I were still handling all aspects of the business. So that means, creating the pillows, labeling, boxing it up, customer service emails. I just answered at all hours of the day, creating ads, reaching out to press. So we didn't feel like we had the bandwidth for a national TV presence, as well as the prep. Back then also, to be honest, I don't watch TV often, so I wasn't too sure about the show, whether it's a good direction that we wanted to go down for the company, if that makes sense. So,
Yeah.
So we said no the first time around. Yeah.
Very
so
few
that
companies at an early stage get an invite or get like reached out by Shark Tank. From what I've heard, like you must have had like crazy growth in the first few days, and you must have been like in the right place at the right outlets talking about you. So you said no, and you went on with the business, and this is when COVID hits, right? Like late early 2020, and this is when and we'll go through like the impact of COVID, but Shark Tank opportunity comes up again. And this time you reevaluate it and you decide to go for it.
Yes. So between that time and early 2020, a few things happened. One is we were starting to get great traction and continue to get great traction. So as a result, we started hiring, just putting world-class people in operations. So we were able to handle a lot more than before. Two is that we were also in the middle of an accelerator. You're in it, you were in it too, called 500 Startups. And it really changed my mindset to be more open to large opportunities like this. And I think the final and most important kind of factor 3 is I met a ton of founders who have been on the show that experience all types of outcomes, like received a deal, didn't receive a deal, walked away from a deal, was embarrassed, was very vanilla like us. And all of them just had a great experience. And that was the number one factor of why maybe, this could be a good direction for us to head down and we should just try it.
And what were your expectations when you went into the show? And obviously up to the point you can share, what did you go in expecting to come out as, right? Did you have any thought about it, or was it completely fluid depending on the kind of conversation that goes with the sharks?
Yeah, I think I would say my expectations for the show was that the sharks would have been way more critical, especially the fact that we had investors already, but they were actually really supportive. And I expected also that the show would bring in many different types of customers, ones we haven't really focused on yet. And I also expected a lot of public scrutiny around myself and my, again, mysterious co-founder who is not even on LinkedIn, and we're not even connected on LinkedIn. And the brand. And I think I got all of that. But I think I would say that maybe something I didn't expect was, again, how positive the whole filming experience was. Everyone there was so supportive, including the sharks. And I didn't expect, even after, kind of preparing for inventory and things like that, that we would hit 200K in sales the first couple of hours that first night. So all of that was pretty wild.
What was that experience like? So you're out of this, you come back from Shark Tank, of course, you go over your business, the episode airs, and from what I understand, you didn't know beforehand that the episode was going to include you. At some point, you probably realized that the episode is including Pluto Pillow as well. The episode airs. Were you prepared for the positive turnaround after the episode? Like, did you know what to expect coming out of it?
Yeah, so we filmed in August 2020 and we didn't air until 10 months later, so in May. So it's been quite a long time, a long journey, especially if you're a startup. I remember I was watching with my family, my team was all watching, at home. And one thing that nobody shares is that airing is just as scary, if not as scary as filming, because you weren't sure how you were being portrayed. I think you only had like 3 weeks before, and sometimes 1 week before you air, and that's when they tell you. And I remember like the whole night, I just looked like a pale ghost, like just shaking. But it was all hands on deck from the first moment it aired in the East Coast. Just the inbound of inquiries and orders. And even though, we made sure to take a moment to celebrate, it was just go time on Monday. We were sold out and back ordered 6 weeks after that first weekend. And also because of the supply chain issues we were already facing due to the pandemic.
That's an amazingly well handled, because you were able to complete all of those deliveries. You said you were kind of overwhelmed with the response. You didn't expect that. You go through all of that, and now, and this kind of also ties into the topic of conversation today, right? Like, if you were selling like a common SKU, just like one piece, you can manufacture it in mass and potentially handle this kind of volume. But in your case, these are custom-made pillows made to order depending on the forms that people are filling on the website. How did you? And we'll talk about the entire manufacturing process if time permits, but the first basic thing around a customized product is pricing. How did you come up with the pricing for such a niche customized product when you initially started? And did it evolve over a period of time? How did your thought process around pricing this product changed over a period of time as well?
Yeah, I think I have a lot to say for this one, because at first, when we first started, we did a lot of market research, obviously, around the product price that we were going to launch with, what's out there, what's considered expensive, inexpensive. And for pillows, that can range from like $4 to $400. And fun fact, I think the most expensive pillow is like $82,000.
Wow.
We'll never get there.
Wow.
And it was important for us. It was important for us to price ourselves kind of high enough so that we make a good margin, especially as we were bootstrapped like the first year in the early days. But at the same time, yet still approachable, where the trade-off between getting maybe an expensive one-size-fits-all pillow and one that's made for you from us is like nothing, right? And we felt like, at least until now, offering it at under a $100 price point makes it approachable. It was also interesting though that even we had a larger margin when we first started, we still priced ourselves like too low. And later on, when we went higher, it communicated our quality that we already had even more clear, if that makes sense.
Right.
And I would say, like, I think a lot of pitfalls with companies, DTC or otherwise, is that they could price themselves too low at first just to get customers, and it doesn't work out at scale.
Right.
But then when you price yourself higher, you don't get the number of customers you need to sustain. So there actually just wasn't a product market fit with that price. So I think that, you know, as a new founder, really watch out for that. And your unit economics, like I keep on hammering it in for myself because I made that mistake in the early days too.
That's amazing. And you know, one thing you mentioned is you are kind of like the first and only custom built pillow company. However, I'm sure that when you either talk to investors or even customers and position yourself, people tend to compare you with some competition, may or may not be direct, because there are people who are still selling pillows. Do you see yourself competing with everyone who's selling pillows as a industry, or how would you define competition for Pluto Pillow and when you operate in such a niche personalized space?
Yeah, I think you know, when you talk about like the category, this is actually here where like me and my co-founder disagree a little bit, is that he thinks that like we kind of created this category where we still have to educate customers on why custom is, you know, best for you. Whereas I would say that, you know, when someone is looking for a pillow, we want them to consider us, so that we are kind of competing with all of these, like maybe one size fits all or mattress brands that have pillows. But what we do agree on is that we exist in this unique space where this is, again, a product that everyone needs, but we have a patented proprietary process where we custom create it for you. So while it's niche, it's also easy to understand, like especially if you've ever been pillow shopping, if you dislike your pillow, or just want to see if you can improve upon your sleep through an essential product. So I think for most brands and products, I would say the solution is to remove choices, keep things simple. But the other direction that we're betting on for this particular product is let's learn exactly what people want, make it for them, offer a level of custom that was unprecedented, and address the common pain points in a more precise way.
And talking about category creation, right?
Yeah.
There's one important aspect of this, which is education and awareness. How do you even right now go about educating customers about the importance of a custom built pillow, and you know, not going for a mattress that gives you two free pillows with it, which are probably like the absolute worst quality, right? For someone who's in the market for pillows, what is your approach of educating them today on, you know, why they should go for a custom built pillow from Pluto Pillow?
Yeah, I think it's, so one is, on one side, there are people who really already care about their pillow, haven't found anything out there, and they come to us because they know exactly what they're looking for. And what you were just mentioning now is like educating customers on the importance of pillows, because what we think is that a lot of people like me, you know, I haven't thought about my pillow before that much, where you're supposed to replace your pillow every 12 to 18 months. So, and with that, it's kind of like, why not get something that's created for you, arrives within 7 business days, that's using over 4 million data points to craft this product for you, because it's so essential to your sleep. So we kind of talk about how like we go, you know, your sleep kind of goes beyond your mattress. Your pillow is just as important, and it is talking about that, and kind of, you know, I guess like really the wellness and sleep space, there's been a hyper focus on that since COVID as well. So that has really helped, and, you know, continue to talk about that. I don't think pillows were in that conversation for a long time.
Yeah. And as we continue to talk about this, one quick note for the audience, we will be having a few more questions from our side that we want to definitely hear Susana's thoughts on. But and I see like a few questions already coming in the chat. Please put in your questions. We'll have 10 minutes of Q&A where we'll take in questions from the chat and have Susana answer those as well. Going back, and you know, one of the things you touched upon very briefly now is COVID. What was the impact? And right when COVID hit, obviously everyone's home. What I heard is people are started spending more on home goods and home products. Like, did you see that spike as well? And on along the same lines, just adding one more question there, supply chain. Uh, Supply chain obviously went for a toss due to COVID. How did it affect Pluto Pillow, and how did you manage this right now?
Yeah, in the beginning of COVID in LA, our warehouse had to shut down for over 2 months, actually,
Oh,
at the beginning of the shutdown. We didn't really know when we could start back up again, and it was all really uncertain at that point. So when that first hit, we started actually emailing everybody who had pending orders that we were just going to actively refund them. But some folks actually immediately wrote back and be like, no, like, what are you doing? Like, I need to order again now. So we switched to a more like opt-out cancellation email when they did have orders. We also were very transparent on our site everywhere about even like an indefinite delay once, especially we were at a place where we knew we'll be shut down for a while. So I think being transparent everywhere helped a lot in saving a lot of orders and them getting that assurance that we'll keep them updated as we go. But that being said, we still struggled. I mean, we had a lot of cancellations still in the early days when COVID first hit, understandably so. Yeah, and I think as we kind of went through COVID, and even now, as you see, it's all throughout the news, like there are supply chain issues just everywhere, right? And I think like we struggled really hard early summer this year, had a hard time keeping up with demand. And because of that experience, we just knew that the holidays would be rough this year. So what we did is we went above and beyond, ordered 2 times, 3 times more components much earlier and more than usual. We moved into a bigger space. And we're now pretty set for the holidays. Like we'll probably be one of the brands that will be set up for a good holiday season. Like we'll deliver things on time. People can actually get last minute gifts with us, things like that. And shout out to our investors for giving us the resources in doing so. But yeah, it was just like really having a pulse on everything that's going on, communicating very transparently with customers, getting ahead of it as much as we can.
That is awesome. And a lot of founders I talk to, D2C founders, they are still exploring and still figuring out how to deal with the supply chain issues. And you're telling me that you've already figured it out, you anticipated it, worked on it, and you already kind of solved the problem. That's amazing, and kudos to you for that.
Thank you.
And one of your recent products is the Puff, the body pillow. And this product that you launched is not customized or not personalized. We are not going to order as such, right? Given that your core offering has always been, we'll build a pillow which is meant for you. How did you think about, and what led to building a product which was a common offering across the board, which is not customized? Thought processes around it. Why build something which is not customized, or how do you approach something along the lines?
Yeah, super good question. We've had our main flagship product for over 2 years before launching something new. So when we were deciding on that next product that could live on your bed along with your Pluto Pillow, one that customers have requested, that you could use as a lounge accessory, we had to make a key decision on, are we customizing this product? Does it need to be custom, a body pillow that you hug? Or if we do so, would we just be customizing for the sake of customization, where it doesn't really make sense for our product? Yet we felt that we could make it 100 times better than anything else out there. So even though we may have started with customizing being that, like the thing we launch with, and we truly still believe that sleep pillows should be custom because, people have a lot of different preferences and needs when it comes to sleep. But but after researching all of the body pillow pain points, we didn't feel that it needs to be custom. We just want to continue to develop and design the best kinds of products and experiences for comfort and sleep. And sometimes that can take on the form of disrupting a whole business model and purchasing experience, and others, we just want to design a great product and experience for.
What I take away from that is don't customize for the sake of customizing.
Customization, right?
Do
Exactly, right.
customization.
Mm-hmm.
I have two more questions before we dive into 6 questions that we already have in the chat. One, and which you briefly touched upon right now as well, is your buying experience is the product. Obviously, the pillow is a product and the item you sell, but the buying experience as well as the post-buying experience is what you are kind of pitching right now. How did you think about this, and like, what was the thought in terms of designing that buying experience as well as the post-buying experience? Because a lot of D2C founders are now, thinking and putting a lot more thought into the entire user journey rather than just the use of the product itself.
Yeah. So this is for, I think all products, but for us, when we were thinking about it, pillows are such an intimate product. People bring it on trips. It's a very loyal category once you found something you love, especially. So we feel that, especially for this category, having a great product is just table stakes. Like, we wanted to reflect that kind of like closeness and care every way we can.
Right.
So we optimized our questionnaire, for example, so that it's not too long. We get enough details from you to complete, us like creating a build for you. Customers who are also very passionate about the right pillow will also take the time. And yet there's an optional details field where you can share anything you want with our team. We read every single order, any preferences you have. But on the back end, what people don't see also is that we now have all of this data to not only introduce new builds, advance our algorithm, but build meaningful relationships with you. And this means that our CX team, our customer experience team, is armed with a ton of details to start when you reach out after purchasing from us. And I really have to give a shout out to our CX team, because what many people don't know, but I've come to realize, is that you not only get a pillow with us, you also get first-class customer service. And this turned a lot of our customers into super fans.
That's awesome. And just one last question from my side before we dive into the audience Q&A is, of course, Shark Tank was a huge kind of like inflection point. And, the way, if I was to say Shark Tank as an episode airing was an influencer moment in the history. I saw a tweet where one of your customers said, I looked at this TikTok post and I bought the Pluto Pillow, and it's one of the best sleep I'm getting now. How did you go about TikTok being one of the channels of acquisition, influencers on TikTok, on Instagram, and like, what is the strategy going forward to work with these influencers?
Yeah, it's interesting. I never thought our Shark Tank experience was like an influencer marketing in that way, but it was. Like, we had customers coming out of the woodwork, mentioning us on Twitter, on all these social channels, saying that we were going to air. And they're really like our true influencers, because they actually purchase the product and they talk about it. They rave about it when they like it. And second is that we also had a lot of content creators reach out. So I guess, I don't, not to sound like a plug, but this is also where Affable really shines for us, because we needed a space where we can seamlessly see like exactly who, like, these TikTokers, influencers, who their audience exactly are, what they've shared before, what companies they've worked with, and have just one place where we could send out products, gifts, discount codes, things like that. So Affable does that for us. And I think that, like, influencer marketing will continue to be impactful even as the channel changes, because for me personally, also, there is something about seeing someone you like talk about a product and service genuinely. But I think the key word is genuine, because it could be very much a boom or bust. It's always going to be a strong mainstream channel. So it's worth noting that the authenticity and fit with the brand they're representing will come through more. People will just know, right? If they see that there's not a fit there's an ad, you just kind of like skim past it. So if they don't speak genuinely about it, it doesn't work out.
And do you think that going forward, you will be continuing to invest more into this channel for acquisition? Have you seen like good results from it already? Like, I know for sure one of your TikTok influencers, like, obviously shot up, went kind of viral. You got a bunch of traffic from that. What are your thoughts on how you're going to leverage this channel in the future?
Yes, so we are focusing, very heavily on TikTok now. It was a complete surprise when someone, just received their pillows and they made a really cool video about it. And we got like 60K in sales from that. So I thought that was like a really amazing channel that we haven't quite tapped yet. So yeah, we're definitely investing heavily into it, especially in 2022 with maybe a new product and an exciting new vertical that you may not expect.
Teaser. I like that. Thanks for sharing that. I'd love to get into the Q&A, audience Q&A now. Susana, if time allows, if we can extend this by 5 minutes, if your availability allows, that'd be great, because we have a lot of questions here. So in order, there's the first question from Richard, who says, most businesses spend money on ads. PR is mostly unconventional. How did you figure out this route when you first started? And this is something you touched on initially, why PR and not ads?
Yeah, we didn't spend money on ads. Like, we didn't have that money to spend on ads. We didn't spend money on PR either. It was literally just cold emailing. And in terms of cold emailing, it was reaching out to different journalists that I feel could have a good probability of writing about us. So like, I would try their first last name at, Forbes.com or businessinsider.com, and I would try all these combinations, or I would look for them on Twitter and Instagram, and I would just kind of spend a portion of my time every day, like a couple of hours kind of hounding them, because I thought that really showed that we were, a legit company, and even good for like SEO purposes, even to this day. So I guess like how I figured that out in the beginning was they love talking to founders. They love talking to, especially in the beginning, like they don't want to talk to a PR company. I think like they do like to talk to founders when they can. So really tweaking your pitch and that cold email, keeping it concise yet very interesting, was important. And we got about like a 35% response rate to all of our emails, which I would say is pretty good.
Wow. Yeah, that is actually
happy to also share that with anybody later on who has reached out.
And I mean, you should potentially put a blog on, and Pluto Pillow's blog is actually quite updated almost always, right? So potentially something that you could put up there, definitely a useful resource for founders. Another question from Sue, did you have a close competitor to give out as validation to initial investors? And just talking about investors, I'd like to add another follow-up there. And this is something that even Shark Tank had pointed out, like the Sharks had pointed out, which is it will be difficult to scale a business like yours. Is it something that you got a lot in terms of investor questions when you were out fundraising?
Yes to all of the above. So let's go for the close competitor question. One thing is there's a pillow brand out there. I think you guys are thinking of it too, but should not be named in this webinar. They sell $300 million of pillows a year. And so in terms of like being very laser focused on beating that for the modern day consumer, I shared with investors that we have a long way to go to get there. And so we shared that as a competitor, but at the same time, because nothing like this model exists, I also had to give examples of other, or sometimes I did, of other venture-backed companies that were also in that customization realm that may not be like in the same space. So let's think, Pros for hair care. There is Curology for skincare. I use all of these products as well. And so like, giving these two examples was a really good way for investors to kind of see like, okay, these are the two kind of areas that they've heard of. They know there's a big market opportunity here of a one-size-fits-all product. There's also a market opportunity here of personalization, and you can scale that. So I think that helped a lot actually in sharing that with investors, along what you just said, Nisarg, in terms of like, how can we scale this? This was actually what we were most excited by when we first started the company. We didn't see the customization element as kind of, a handicap or any way in our growth. We thought that it was just really important to design systems and systems in our facility, like even things like certain components, like because we have data on exactly like where to order, when to order, how much to order, where to put it in our facility, like even with markers on the ground to like make the most output as much as possible. And even like when it comes to our pillows, it's a modular design, right? Which again consists of that foam core and that outer plush which can like cover a lot of different fields, everything can be put together really quickly. I think that's kind of one of our strengths. This is a blueprint that we can then apply to other facilities going onwards, especially as we want to go, you know, in the East Coast soon. So, I mean, we want a facility in the East Coast.
Awesome. What is the most common age segment that is keen on custom pillows? Is there something that you found about your buyers and audiences? Is there like an age group which is more keen to buy these pillows?
When we first started, and even now, I would say a big portion is the 25 to 44-year-old group, because they were some of the early adopters who are comfortable with buying online, and that, you know, want to, you know, take a shot. You know, they're familiar with like direct to consumer brands like Allbirds, Casper, things like that. And when they see something, it's like, oh, like I can get a pillow for this price, and they would try it. So that was like initially, but as we actually grew more and more, that older segment came in that has been experiencing, you know, a lot of pain, or they had a pillow for many, many years and they just couldn't find a certain feel anymore. And we saw that, like, you know, when we advertised even like on SiriusXM, which was like an older audience, like we found a lot of that came in as well. So I would say like, let's just do like 25 to like 55-year-old as our biggest group. That's like
everyone is. Awesome. We have a car enthusiast in the house, and so he or she has put in like 4 or 5 questions. We'll take one so that we can take a few questions from others as well. Okay, let's take marketing because you're talking about growth. What metrics did you use to determine the marketing budget for year 1?
Okay, so I think, and when we first started, we had a goal to hit a certain amount the first year, which was like, you know, a very kind of conservative $500,000. And like, you know, from our first kind of press, I think we saw how much press was, like how valuable it was to help us hit some of our numbers. So we really focused heavily on that. And then sparking that with Facebook. But like the metrics that we use were a lot like, you know, how much one channel would convert, like what's the conversion rate of a certain channel, and then how do we then maximize kind of for that as much as possible, if that makes sense. But like we were just really lean. We didn't really have certain like goals. We just had this forecast and goal of a revenue to hit that first year. But we were really lean. Like everything we did had to make money. It just, I
mean, you are still lean. It's such a lean
we are
organization
very lean.
Even right now. Yeah, that's super
impressive.
And
I could, you know, I think they had a really great couple of questions too, but like, can I just touch on the manufacturing part as well?
Yes.
For us, when we looked at like manufacturers, what we did was like, we had so many different products, and I would look up my favorite type of materials, like in terms of the tags, like the number of like the register number of everything. And then I would like just do some like crazy Google searches online. I would then like, you know, call these manufacturers, like get a feel, then visit them. But it was very, you know, just kind of very lean and being very resourceful in that, you know, finding the materials we like the most and just going straight there.
Did you have issues initially, like, or were you lucky with the first manufacturer or the first couple of manufacturers you worked with, or did you
they
have
were
to do
fine for the first version, right? But you're always tweaking your product, especially as you get more customer feedback. And we did switch. We switched a couple of times, but every time it was like pretty seamless. But I would say like as much as possible, I would visit all of these like manufacturers of these components as much as we can. But we have a couple of different suppliers, and they don't know exactly like what we do, because we get a certain component, it's made for us. And when it ships to our facility here, we actually put it together to build pillows.
That's so when you custom build this, and you mentioned you take in a lot of these parameters, right? What about testing it before delivering it to the end user? because the end user is expecting something based on the form that they've filled. It's like 14 questions, if I'm not wrong.
18, yeah.
18 questions, thanks for clarifying. So what does the testing process look like? And this is completely like, just curious, it's not in the chat right now, because you're making it to order. How do you test it before you send to them?
Yeah, in the beginning, it was just, we had these questions formulated because we worked with, sleep researchers and even like some chiropractors, physical therapists, like what goes into making a thoughtful pillow? Like what questions should we ask? And like, obviously we assign like weights to these questions. And the first couple of customers were kind of like our guinea pigs too, right? And in that, like they gave us feedback, and then obviously that feedback would go back into our algorithm, and it would just like get better and better with more time. And how we tested that was like the pillow industry return rate is 13%. Our goal is to get it down to less than 10% in the first year, which we did, and now we're down to like 6%. So I think that's that was kind of how we got better and better with time. And every pillow comes with a 100-night risk-free trial. So that's the number one test, I would say. But in the beginning, it was just making sure that we build it out so that it's right for their sleep positions, their body stats, and what they liked or disliked based on previous experiences.
So even with a 100-day free return, your return rate is so low.
I would say so. Yeah, I'm actually very surprised when I learned that e-commerce companies were at 15 to 30%, because that would be so hard. Yeah. But yeah, our goal was just to bring it down from the pillow industry return rate, which was 12.95%, because we're in that space.
Awesome. So a couple of last questions before we conclude this. One is, don't you think that the customized category also limits distribution opportunities?
It does.
And like just extend it a bit, like you potentially, if you have to sell this in retail, it becomes a very difficult task to do so, because how do you sell a customized product in retail?
Yeah, so I think we still have a long ways to go in terms of this product being like solely direct to consumer. And like we're laser focused on that, because that's why we started in the beginning. Like we don't need another pillow company, like another pillow, like it's already kind of out there, right? And I think that was like the most important element, but that's also why like we have these other products that not only because it isn't worth customizing for customization's sake at the same time, but also these are gateway products that could lead folks into our brand and what we stand for, which is, the sleep pillow being our flagship, the puff being, our gateway product, even though it's like a great designed, product, and potentially our future products as well. Like they're not all custom, but we're betting that this product that we have, the main flagship product, we still have a long ways to go in terms of customization. We could still partner with like hotels and other places to deliver that experience to their guests. So it's really just like
future product, but you're not giving us anything about what's coming up.
Yeah. Well, I can, this is what I can share if anyone's interested. We have really exciting things in the pipeline, even though we're laser focused on this category. I could share that we worked with a stellar team at IDEO at entering this adjacent new vertical in early 2022. It's not something you would expect, and it's something that I actually haven't even seen before from a company, but it'll be relevant to everybody.
You just made it.
I haven't seen this before,
and you made everyone more curious, like what's coming up. So super excited to see.
It's not a mattress, guys. So
it's not another smart mattress that can tell you your sleep quality. Okay, there's one question in the chat, and I don't want to miss that one as well. Can you go over the pricing strategy again? I believe it's easier to go down in price, but way more difficult to go up. So it is best not price yourself too low initially. Can you reflect on that again?
Yes. I mean, that kind of hit the nail on the head, because I would say like pricing high is the way to go. Like, I mean, for our pricing strategy, I didn't say that we did it right. I'm saying like exactly what to look out for, which is when you're pricing yourself too low. That's the point, I would say. So I think most founders actually underprice. And that was what I wanted to share the most today. And yeah, I said before, at the price that you actually need to sell for. Sometimes it's not sustainable and you have to be honest with yourself. So it's good to, you know, after taking in the market research in terms of like all the offerings out there, seeing like what you want to communicate in terms of your price, like how you want your brand to be best communicated. I think it's just best to price higher than lower for sure. You can always go down.
I can totally relate to the fact that founders always underprice the products initially, and we've done that before, and we've learned the hard way. I think we still underprice it. Just saying.
I see, Nisar.
Super insightful. Thanks a lot, Susana. I know we went over time. I have so many more questions, but I want to also respect time for all the attendees as well. Thanks everyone for joining. Just a brief introduction again about us. I'm one of the founders of Affable. We help brands like Pluto Pillow, e-commerce brands, and bigger enterprise brands with their entire influencer management. We built a solution that brands use to find, manage, and measure their social media influencers. So anyone in the audience, if you are running D2C brands or if you are working with influencers, do check us out on the website. And if you would like to know more, I'm happy to get on a call, walk you through the product, and see if there is a valid use case. Said that, thanks a lot again, Susana. This has been a super, super insightful discussion. We've recorded this, and what we'll do after the session is create a quick recording, put it up on YouTube, share it with everyone else who joined and registered. Some of them couldn't join us. As I said, Mark Zuckerberg has running an event at the same time that we're running the event. So for those attendees, we would send out the recording as well. And our next webinar would happen around the end of November, along the same lines of D2C growth and acquisition. And we'll send out the invites. Looking forward to having everyone there as well.
Yeah, and everybody, thank you so much for joining. If there's anything that's confusing or you want more details on, happy to chat. Just send me an email, Susana@plutopillow.com. But thank you so much for joining today. Thanks for having me, Nisarg.
Of course. Thanks a lot. Thanks, everyone. See you. Have a great rest of your day ahead. Bye.
Bye.